Welcome to Hack the Entrepreneur, the show which reveals the fears, habits, and inner battles behind big-name entrepreneurs and those on their way to joining them. Now here is your host, John Naster.
Hey, this is Hack the Entrepreneur. Thank you so much for joining me again today. I've got something I want to tell you, or ask you, I suppose. I'm going to be starting a new series on the show maybe every 2 weeks from now. I'll do 2 or 3 of them to see how they go. It's going to be like a mailbag sort of thing. So I would love to have questions from you, and I will answer them on the air. No interview or anything. I'll treat your question like a hack, and then I'll give you my thoughts, my feelings, my direction on it, and then share it with you. And I can say your name and website on the show if you have a website you want to share. And then I'll also link to you in the show notes, so you'll get a link back from my site. So yeah, questions, business, marketing, content, podcasting, ideas, execution, anything you want. Email me, john@hacktheentrepreneur.com, or hit me up on Twitter @JohnNaster. I'm going to answer 3 to 5 questions to start, depending on the length and how long they take to answer. And I will get a message back to you that you are going to be on that episode. It's going to be fun. Email me or tweet me any and all of your questions, and I'll answer them in an upcoming Hack the Entrepreneur mailbag. All right, without further ado, I am your host, John Naster, but you can call me Johnny. My guest today is an editor, writer, and an entrepreneur. With 10 years experience in self-employment, my guest has published 12 books, gathered 780,000 blog followers, and 250,000 email subscribers. He is currently the editor-in-chief and co-owner at Clients from Hell, where they help creative professionals deal with their clients and build their freelancing businesses. Now, let's hack Bryce Bladon. Email marketing. It can be so damn boring. Or it can be so damn awesome. It can. Email marketing is one of my favorite parts of being like an online entrepreneur. Absolutely. I find it fascinating. I find it intriguing. And I love having that direct contact with subscribers, with fans, with listeners, with readers, whatever it happens to be that I'm doing it at that point. Companies using marketing automation will see 53% higher conversions than those using traditional, or what I call boring, email marketing. ActiveCampaign will enable you to send perfectly timed messages in response to your customers' actions and behaviors. The best part is it's going to treat your email contacts as unique individuals, which they are, and you cannot forget that, rather than just sending everyone the same boring message over and over. Plus, ActiveCampaign is beautiful and easy to use, even for someone like me. There's no need to hire consultants because you can set it up for yourself. See why thousands are upgrading to a more intelligent marketing solution. Sign up right now for a 14-day free trial. Don't even need a credit card. How much better could that be? Visit activecampaign.com/hack. There's no training fees, there's no contracts, and pricing is absolutely accessible to anybody. Custom deal for Hack the Entrepreneur listeners right now. Free migration from your other email provider if you are using one. Your second month of service is absolutely free, and you're going to get a free one-on-one strategy session with their platform consultant. Start marketing smarter today. Get and convert more leads with ActiveCampaign. Go to activecampaign.com/hack and sign up for your 14-day free trial. We are back with another episode of Hack the Entrepreneur. And today we have a very, very special guest from the west coast of Canada. Bryce, welcome to the show.
John, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. I'm happy to have you. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So should we jump into it?
Let's jump into it.
All right. Bryce, as an entrepreneur, can you tell me what is the one thing that you do that you feel has been the biggest contributor to your successes so far?
Wow, you're just opening with that question. All right.
That's how we do it.
That's fair. That's fair. All right, this might make me look like a bit of an ass. I'll cop to that now, but honestly, I've always placed a higher value on exploring new or interesting or genuinely challenging experiences over potentially far more profitable but less interesting opportunities. At least at this point in my career, that is my driving prerogative. Now, at the end of the day, that does mean that my income, doesn't break seven figures. It doesn't. I'm not necessarily going to have that passive income dream. But as a person, as an individual, as a professional, I'm much the better for it. And the people I work with are way more interesting to me. And I'm building genuine relationships with these people. And it's built on a foundation of shared passion and the opportunities that arise from that and everything that could potentially come of it. It's so much more meaningful to me. I won't necessarily say it's the 100% perfect way to do things, but I haven't been more thrilled with a particular career direction or choice I've made than that one.
Excellent. So you say there's you're doing it, you're building genuine relationships and you're sort of nourishing maybe a network or something, which almost kind of seems like you're playing like a longer game. Or is it just that you just truly like the challenge? You know what I mean? Is it really because you just like the challenge in that? Or are you playing this longer game that you think you'll reap rewards from in the future?
It's definitely both. And it's also, if we're being 100% honest, a big part of it is if I get too comfortable or I'm not being challenged, I start to stagnate. I start to be a less pleasant person and I become less good at the work I'm doing. In the past, I've had very kind of dream job sounding positions, stuff where I've been naming real estate developments and establishing the brand for them and doing work in film. And that stuff was really cool on paper, but the work itself was very uninteresting. There wasn't a lot of creativity associated with it. The people I was working with were there to score the big sale, not because they believed in what they were literally building or the brand they were making. And working with people who don't believe in what they're doing it's not pleasant to me. And they're the kind of people who I think down the line, it'll have a negative effect on who they are, which isn't to say, sometimes you do have to work for that dollar. I appreciate that. I am coming at this from a privileged, self-employed perspective, but it's a choice I've made that I'm very happy with.
Is it a privileged perspective?
To a degree. I run a site called Clients from Hell. I'm aware of how bad some people have it out there. If you were to ask me that question 10 years ago, I would not have been willing to turn down as much work as I do now that has such a promise of income attached to it. But I also wouldn't have been as happy as I am now.
So that's sort of like a driver in your business, like lifestyle sort of business type thing where you would rather do the work that you enjoy doing with the people you enjoy doing it rather than sort of growing, scaling, maybe hiring people to create content for you and to just kind of acquire even the clients from hell if it needed, but as many as possible to grow as fast as possible.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a lifestyle choice. And to be frank, my personal professional life is very much melded to some degree. I know we're not really supposed to do that with work-life balance. And to kind of contradict what I said earlier, when I was 10 years ago, you were to ask me that question. That's still true, but to a degree. The reason I freelanced, the reason I consult, the reason I'm an entrepreneur is because I do genuinely believe that we're at a place with society, with technology, where we are much more empowered to make these things happen for ourselves, to be our own boss, to decide what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. It's not always easy, and there have been rough years in my experience, years where I've definitely looked back on it and I was like, is this the right decision I'm making? But I really do believe that if you're going to be doing something for, let's just be frank, outside of sleeping, there is nothing I do more than working. And I want to like working as much as I like sleeping. And I really like sleeping. So yeah, I feel like, work isn't fun all the time, but it should be interesting. It should be challenging. You should be working with people who you're excited to work with, who are excited to work with you. And that can't always be a reality, but I do think it should be a goal.
Well said. Well said. And I have to compliment you to the fact that you made it to 4 minutes and 52 seconds into the conversation before contradicting yourself and admitting it. So that's good. That's a new sort of record we've attained today.
Oh.
So this thinking back 5 years and saying, if I asked you 10 years ago how you would answer something different, let's kind of follow that trail and kind of go back if we can. Because I know it doesn't always make sense, Bryce, sort of going through where you sort of make this determination between, am I going to just get a job or am I kind of unemployable and need to do my own thing? But looking back now, it probably kind of makes sense. So can you kind of take us back to when you sort of found this out about yourself and then sort of how that evolved?
Sure. To be honest, it goes back even further than that. It was as soon as I would say junior high or high school, as weird as that may be. Again, sort of, how can I tell this story without coming across as tremendously narcissistic? Oh, it's just not possible. So
It's kind of what we're here for.
yeah, I guess, yeah, you start talking to me about my choices and who I am. I'm going to talk your ear off about what a wonderful human being I am. But no, when I went to school, I was able to graduate early. I had a lot of free time, a lot of time. I was the only one of my friends who had jobs usually, and quite a few jobs at that. And it was a combination of wanting to make money, of wanting to, frankly, do work, whatever shape or form you put it in. But as a result of graduating early, as a result of the advanced placement programs I had the privilege of being a part of, I did find that, like, just diving into, like, I don't mind putting in 12 hours a day on something that genuinely interests me. And I don't always have to like the thing. Like, sometimes I hate the thing, but it's a sort of love-hate thing. And that level of agency has always been appealing to me. As privileged as I was with those advanced placement programs, with graduating school early, when I was a younger person, my parents were divorced, and I hated just being carted around between the two houses. I'm going real far back with this question, John.
All right, it's good.
But that always drove me insane. And my single mother did wonderfully, it should be noted. But, we did have to make a lot of concessions, and those sorts of concessions in terms of just how you get through life frustrated me. And I wanted the freedom to have the life I wanted. And I wanted the freedom to not have somebody else tell me that, you have to sit at this desk for this number of hours a day, even if you don't have anything to do. Earlier on in my career, like, let's actually get to a relevant time span that'll mean something to people. About, 8 years ago, I started doing some corporate contracts while I was going to school. And I had those jobs where I was making a ton of money at an oil company. But honestly, the week's amount of work, I was finishing halfway through Tuesday. And when I told, like, my liaison to the client this, they were just like, well, we'd love it if you could just, sit there for the next 28 hours in case we need you. And that drove me insane. It didn't make sense. It was just this idea that work has to be done, 9 to 5, 5 days a week. You have to be in this one spot. And it's just this outdated way of thinking that doesn't make sense for a lot of situations anymore. And I wanted no part in contributing to that. I think, making an impact, getting results, however, providing value. I'm basically just listing off entrepreneurial buzzwords, but, putting in work that nets meaningful results is it's not an astoundingly original idea, but the idea of looking busy, of going to do something because you feel obligated as opposed to you want to, or you believe in the thing, or it's your passion, or it's your craft. I've never wanted any part of that. So the agency, the freedom, and the ability to do work that matters to me, even if it doesn't seem like the most interesting work to other people.
And so this is something you just kind of have pushed for constantly. And do you sort of reach points where you wish you could sort of merge, like, the fact that this oil company paid you a ton of money, but the work was kind of obligation and the time was obligation, with work that you truly do love and empowers you?
I mean, to a degree, and I think I have to a degree. There's something to be said for the comfort of a full-time job, of that old mold of thinking where you sign up for a job and you're like, well, this is the next 40 years of my career taken care of. Just need to not screw up. And you don't have to, love the place. You shouldn't hate the place, but there is something to be said for that. And it's also worth mentioning that earlier on in my career, as much as I might have made myself out to be some sort of like savant when it comes to schoolwork, I definitely thought that would translate to the real world. But the real world wasn't like school. The real world didn't have, the right answer, you get a reward. The real world, I had to actually put in the work. And I fell into that trap. I call it the Reddit commenter trap, where you get the idea in your head that you're smarter than other people and you'd be doing way better than other people if you could just find that one thing that interests you. But otherwise, you're boring. You're making too many concessions in your day to day. You'd be a success, but you just haven't found that thing. And I had to look back and be like, all right, like look at yourself. Like I was making excuses. I was making every single excuse. And the worst part, the part that frustrates me and frustrates me to the point that I'm like, maybe don't broadcast this to thousands of people. Was just how I had this like very skewed view of myself that wasn't realistic. It wasn't honest. I'm building to a point, I swear, John.
Yeah.
So one thing I did notice is those full-time jobs, as much as they are very much not for me, one thing I really would have enjoyed there was the structure, was the inherent direction that comes with it. Because wallowing in the limitless possibilities of self-employment, it can be a beautiful, wonderful thing where you can make anything of yourself. But I'm the kind of person where if you give me two choices, I can make a decision. If you give me unlimited choices, I am never going to make a decision. Like purchasing a car, I needed a car. It took me 8 months because I fell down that rabbit hole of consumer reports and reviews and recommendations. And it's just, I don't know how else to phrase it other than that was an early struggle and something that I've had to build a work ethic on and to figure out how to do my best work, I apologize, and how to focus myself and still care about the work I'm doing.
And sort of building this work ethic, knowing that you sort of get sort of like bogged down in choice if there's too many. What do you sort of put into your day to ensure that you get the work that you need to get done, both creatively and also like from a business perspective of maybe finding new work?
Yeah, well, you know what? Another trap I used to fall into was the productivity porn trap, where you would spend all your free time looking up ways to be more productive, and when you reflect on how much time you've wasted trying to be productive, it's like, oh no, like this is the problem. So for me, it's just relatively uncomplicated. I'll start at the granular level, and that is the oh-so-simple Pomodoro technique. I just have a little extension on my internet browser. For 25-minute sprints, it just deactivates all the most interesting time sync sites I know of and makes it so that I can really only access my email, and then I get a 5-minute break. It's nothing complicated. It makes sense, doesn't it? I know myself well enough to not trust myself, to appreciate how that very easy to click Twitter button will just put me off track for upwards of a half an hour sometimes. And then from there, I always pick 3 things I need to get done, usually work related, in the day. And I usually exceed those things, but just keep it nice and achievable. And then from there, gosh, I'm not even sure what the question was anymore. This is the problem when you get me talking about myself, John. I'd get
Pomodoro technique,
so lost in my eyes.
Pomodoro technique, picking 3 things. It's you sort of knowing yourself better than anyone and kind of knowing your weakness of getting distracted.
Absolutely. And there was one last thing I wanted to add to that.
Perfect.
And that is just, and this is very much related to those 3 things and that Pomodoro technique, but just habit. The habit of what I do when I wake up and the habit of when I decide my work is done for the day. It's nothing sexy. It's nothing interesting. I take a long walk down my favorite bridge at the end of the day. By the way, guys, I probably sound like I'm, nearing retirement. I'm in my late 20s. I'm just the most boring person I know. But it's just a nice little signifier to myself that, like, yes, I'm done for the day. It's time for that walk. And then when I come home from the walk, I turn off my phone and works off my mind for the rest of the day. And that's great. And I feel like I've accomplished something, and that's all I need.
Okay, so habit, your start of the day and your end of the day. The end of the day, you walk to your favorite bridge, I believe you said.
Mhm.
What's the habit to start the day?
Oh, geez. More like habits.
Okay.
So, start of the day, first of all, do not use the phone in bed. This was the hardest one for me to overcome.
And you actually do this?
I struggle with it. I'll be frank. I'll be honest.
We all know we're not supposed to.
Yeah, we're not supposed to. But it's so easy.
Yep.
So my so clever trick is just to put the bed out of reach. Sorry, to put the phone out of reach. Moving the bed would have actually been a substantially more difficult thing to do. So yeah, I basically just put my phone next to the door. I wake up at the same time every day. I'm not tempted because I can't exactly get it in bed. So get up, grab my phone, take it with me to the living room. I usually put on some music or a podcast, do some stretches, warm up some water. If I'm trying to get started on the day right away, I'll just have a nice cup of coffee and get going on my first easy little win, which is to say, when I build those 3 to-dos, I usually pick one little, an easy one to check off just to get me started. Do not check email, and then if I'm just boiling up some water, I'll just mix a little honey in there and just kind of enjoy it while I read something, maybe a book I'm enjoying, maybe an article I'm enjoying. Then do that little bit of work, and then I check my email, and then I kind of like open up for the day, as it were. Once I've had that little. Once I've gone through my wake up process, as it were, and once I've already accomplished something. And then I also get up very early. I tend to get up at about 5:30 every day. So it's about 8 o'clock. I haven't missed any important emails. In fact, I've already checked off one of my 3 things I need to do for the day, and I'm ready to go.
Wow. And then, so as a creative person, as a writer,
Mhm.
do you then sort of wedge a specific time in for that creative work?
Absolutely. It's okay. It falls in one of 3 spots, which is a really clever way of saying at the beginning of the day, the middle of the day, or the end of the day.
So it fits into the day somewhere.
Yeah. No, usually it would be that morning time when nobody else is awake, or about mid-afternoon, I will go find somewhere quiet. In university, what I would do, I would go to a 3-hour lecture that I wasn't actually a part of. And something about that environment, I'm not sure how blue this podcast is, so I'm not going to give you my favorite quote, but let's just say it's not as easy to get distracted in public spaces because, you can't exactly start playing video games there. So going to a lecture or something, people are there to learn, and the professor talking, it sets up this combination of white noise and just an environment where people are here to learn and get stuff done. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. I think it's Chuck Palahniuk who he talks about writing in hospital waiting rooms. And I thought that was insane until I tried doing it with university lecture halls. So, coffee shops, nothing that interesting. And then there's the late night writing, which I never actually schedule or really recommend for health reasons. But you'll notice the common factor here is it's just that sort of a combination of isolation and, how should I put it? It's just a conducive environment to focus, to exploring those creative ideas without getting distracted by something or someone. And yeah, so the honest answer is usually that beginning of the day is my writing time, when the sun isn't quite up yet. But it could also be as the sun has just set and there's nothing else going on for the day, and I'm not getting any messages, I'm not getting any emails, so I can just focus on whatever I'm working on.
Fair enough. That's why I was asking, because so many writers are just so about that morning, the first thing they do, but you didn't say that. And so it was just kind of when it fits. And I guess it depends on how much you have on your plate for how much you actually have to structure around it.
It really is. It's dependent for me on what I'm really working on. So I recently released a new book last month, and that was an example of every morning it would be writing time because I had this big thing to write. But if I have a series of smaller projects where it's not the same thing every day, yeah, no, I can be a lot more flexible with that writing time. But as I've said at the very beginning, it was all about habit with me, and whatever's the most effective habit for whatever I'm working on.
And it's a great segue into your book. So as a preface, I haven't read your book yet. I really, really absolutely need to, and I want to. So I will be doing that very soon, and I'll get back to you listeners about it then. But let's talk the book. It's Hell to Pay 2. Let's talk first as a perspective of the quote unquote projects. which is usually a loose term, but let's use it specifically in this project. So you have a lot of things that you do that you want to fit into your day. Plus you also want to structure your life to keep that sort of good balance and a lifestyle around it.
Mhm.
So that means you can't say yes to everything. You can't say yes to everything that comes when you're walking across that bridge and you come up with ideas,
Mhm.
or in the shower, whatever it is, or people tell you about ideas. So how is it something like this new book? What is it, or what is the process you go through? And whether that's just like a gut process or like a written process, but what is the process you go through, Bryce, to decide that a book like Hell to Pay To is worth your time, energy, and resources?
Well, at the most fundamental level, it was, does this thing exist? Is this thing going to be useful? Who is this thing for? And the answer to all those questions, at least with the original Hell to Pay, was so I have a degree in creative writing. I will let you make what you will of that when it comes to business sense. But getting into freelancing, the thing I struggled with the most was just the business realities of it, the financial side of running your business. And I looked at a lot of resources to help me out, and like, there's some good stuff out there, but for the most part, it was like these giant 500-page tomes about just so many different things, and it just made it so much more complicated and scary, and it left me with more questions than answers, and it wasn't the most compelling stuff to read in the first place. So there wasn't the tool I was looking for, and regardless of whether you write books or you make products or you found businesses, at the end of the day, your question, what you're trying to do is you're trying to give somebody something that'll make their life a little better. At least that's what you should do if you really care about the thing you're doing and the people you're trying to sell to. So with the book, originally, it was just a question of, would somebody find this useful? Would this make their life better? And I concluded, perhaps arrogantly, that yes, it would. And it was based off of my own personal experience. But that is the logic I applied when I built my courses, like Start Freelancing and How to Find Freelance Clients. You'll notice they're based around very simple questions a lot of freelancers tend to have. And then to roll out from there, talk to your audience, talk to your customers, talk to the people who are interested in these things, who are considering these things, who are buying these things. Talk to the people who are buying multiple ones of your things. Talk to people who are critical of your things. Just ask them, what do they like? What do they dislike? What do they think is missing? Not every question needs to be that on the nose. But yeah, so the initial version did great, took all that feedback. Second version seems to be doing just as well, and I'm getting a lot of positive feedback, and I'm getting a lot of reviews for this book that I didn't imagine a book on freelancer finances would be getting reviews on Goodreads, but it has been, and they're really nice, and that makes me feel really good. But I don't think it's because I'm a particularly talented writer. I think it's just a matter of, I asked people what they wanted me to improve on, what questions they didn't get answers to. It's not sexy stuff, I know, but it makes sense and it works, and people seem to care. If people care when you care. So yeah, that's my long-winded answer to that.
It's a pretty sexy cover.
Thank you.
Like, it really is. It's
time.
awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah. I'm always self-conscious about my design chops just because, clients from hell, primarily designers, and I'm a writer. So thank you. That makes me feel real good.
Okay. So, does it exist? Is it useful? That part makes sense. But you talked about courses you've created. You've talked about the book. So, Hell to Pay To, obviously, like, it's a revamp of a book that was successful, I'm guessing. So somewhat that there was a market there. So that's easier. But from the original one, and now from like any of the courses, going back in the conversation, you said, if you only have two choices, you can decide. But with books, with courses, you have infinite. You talk about being useful in answering one specific question, but you probably know that there's 1,000 of those simple questions for freelancers. How do you push yourself to confidently be like, this is the one I have to answer right now? And yes, there's more to answer, but I'll answer those. How do I not turn this book into a 500-page where I'll try and answer all the questions? How do you sort of get through that and keep it simple, answer that question, answer it well and effectively, and be useful?
All right. I'm going to start with that question from the back end. So the immediate question, like, how do you avoid the
It's a long question.
It is the 500 words or the 500 pages. I am a big believer that the better you know something, the more concisely you can communicate it, which is to say, brevity is the soul of wit. You can tell which one of us is the better writer between Shakespeare and I based on the fact that I use 3 times as many words to say that. Now, to answer your more immediate question of like how out of the plethora of freelancer questions, and there is a plethora, assuming plethora has an actual number associated with it. I've had a column. I have my own podcast where people send me their questions. I have a running list of questions. There are hundreds of questions on that. So the question of how did I decide what to focus on? With hell to pay, if we're just going to be 100% honest, and this is where the creative writer exoskeleton falls away and the scummy businessman comes out. I hope not scummy. That was an unnecessary adjective. Sorry, guys. I'm self-conscious, low self-esteem.
We'll let it slide.
It was actually part of my financial advice, and that is the thing you're doing going to provide enough value to justify its expense? So I made this book, and the question driving me before I even made it was, who would buy this, and why would they find it valuable enough to pay money for it? The answer being, it'll save them time, and it'll save them money. So that was a very easy decision to make. Same thing goes for my courses. It's not always a specific dollar figure you can easily track. That is a challenge a lot of creative professionals I've noticed have had, which is, again, another reason I think this book was very useful for a lot of people. And that is, if you're ever trying to sell your services or your product or whatever, you basically, to make this sale a no-brainer for whoever's at the other end, just need to communicate that whatever you're doing is worth more than whatever they're doing now. You just need to communicate what the value of this thing would be in perhaps dollar terms for a lot of people. So with the book, it was as simple as, oh God, looking back, if I was to have followed all this advice, my career, I would be where I am now. And half the time I would be making way more. I would have way more savings. And more than anything is I would have just saved so much just stress and frustration of trying to figure these things out all on my own. I used to fall into that trap of, is there a free option? Why would I pay for the paid option? And the answer is, free things are good, but we tend to assign value to things based off of how much we paid for them. And I have a little folder on my computer filled with, it has to be said, some of these resources are amazing, but just dozens of these free resources I have gotten from talented people. And I never bothered to go through the vast majority of them just because they were a dime a dozen to me. Meanwhile, when I finally decided to get away from just going to Google for answers and to actually read a book on a thing, the reason I was willing to pay for it was because of the time and money it saved and the expertise that I did not have that somebody else did. And they convinced me enough to trust them, to trust in the mistakes they made and the lessons they made so that I didn't have to. And that's my big value proposition at the end of the day, is that I made these mistakes so that you don't have to. And I believe mistakes are a fantastic teacher, and there's a lot of value in being wrong sometimes, provided you do the necessary follow-up. So with the book, with anything I do, it's just important to me that it's going to make somebody else's life a little bit better. And it's going to make it so that they can get all those oh so good lessons without all those oh so terrible mistakes.
Yeah, I love it. I love your sort of, the merging of the creative side, which kind of drove it, but then also with the conscious side of the person purchasing it. Mm-hmm. And what's going to make somebody want to or see the value in paying $39 for a book and then sort of building it from there. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's smart. And it's almost like a dangerous sort of line you walk, because you have the creative side and also that business side, and you're merging them really well together. Most people seem to have one side or the other. Mm-hmm. And I know you're apologizing for sort of merging them, but you do it really well.
Thank you.
And it's something you should sort of, you're doing it. And you're kind of pushing that sort of part of you even more. And it shows in what you're creating, and also in how you're sort of, I guess, positioning it towards the market. Looks great.
Well, geez, John, if I knew you were going to spend so much time complimenting me, I would have spent less time talking. Jesus.
Well, it's just that most people only have the one side or the other. Mm-hmm. And so it's very few people I get on here that have that. And so when I see it in someone, it's cool. I really dig it.
Oh, thanks, man.
It makes me jealous. So it's cool. So that's about what I can say. So where this book, we've been talking mm-hmm. about it. Where can we send listeners to go track it down?
Just go to clientsfromhell.net/help Hell to Pay. It's as easy as that. That's TO, not the number 2. But besides that, clientsfromhell.net/hell to pay.
Very cool. The book is out now completely, right, to buy?
Completely.
From what I can see. So clientsfromhell.net, you're the editor-in-chief over there.
Mm-hmm.
And then your own site, can they track you down there as well?
Oh, they can try.
They can try.
Oh gosh, my personal site. So this is a first world problem if there ever was one, but I have not updated that thing in years. Mostly because it was a tool I would give to potential clients as a, hey, this is what I'm about, this is how I do it, yada yada yada. I hate what I designed and everything, but it worked. And then long story short, I'm pretty much booked up for the remainder of 2017. So and my career has been very lovely that way for a while, so I haven't had to worry about the site. So I recently looked at it and was like, oh, this is ugly, like to the point where it was always weighing in the back of my mind. I was like, I'll just, I'll update my theme. I'll download all the plugin updates. I'll update WordPress, make sure everything is spick and span, maybe tweak the design a little from there. I might have melted my site a little bit. So if you go to brycebladon.com, you can learn all about me and how my relentless pursuit of perfectionism has ruined me.
So this idea, it is right now as we're recording this, it's mid-April 2017, and you're booked up fully for the rest of the year.
Yes.
Wow. How much space do you leave in there for your own projects that you want to also do during this year?
Half my time.
Just like that. I love it.
Yep. I keep it nice and simple sometimes. There's, like I said, with that productivity porn rabbit hole you can fall down, there's all sorts of formulas and strategies you can take, but at the end of the day, what works best for me is just splitting it evenly down the middle.
I love it. Bryce, what's the best social media to track you down on?
Probably my Twitter, at Bryce Bladon. That's at BryceBladon. If you find my voice or the things I say annoying, then I recommend the Clients from Hell Twitter, at ClientsFH.
Excellent. Okay, I will link to all of this in the show notes. Clientsfromhell.net is the site. BryceBladon.com is his site that he's talked up and down. But we'll link to that as well. Bryce Bladon, he is on Twitter a fair bit. So if you have any follow-up questions or just tell him how great he sounds, you can track him down over there. As well as I'll find a link to that Pomodoro technique, but I believe it's like 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, somewhere along that lines if you want to keep it really simple.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, man, this has been good. Thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for sharing so openly. And please just keep doing what you're doing out there in Vancouver, because it's awesome to watch.
Oh, John, thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. And thank you so much for all those insightful questions.
I've now been using ActiveCampaign for 4 months, 4 almost entire months within my business. And it is my favorite tool to use in my business. It's simple, it's easy to use, and it's super effective the way it listens, learns, and adapts to how my subscribers act, open, read, listen, click through, all those things. It's a fascinating email marketing tool that I think you should try. If you want to see why thousands are upgrading to a more intelligent marketing solution, you can get a 14-day free trial right now without even using a credit card. Go to activecampaign.com/hack. Not only that, for being a Hack the Entrepreneur listener, I've got you a special deal. Free migration. So if you have an email list or email lists and templates and all that stuff over at another email provider, don't worry about it. We're going to move you over to ActiveCampaign absolutely for free. Plus, whatever service level you choose after your 14-day trial, you're going to get your second month absolutely free. Plus, this is cool, a free one-on-one strategy session with a platform consultant. You can even use this during your free trial to sort out how this platform works and see how to utilize it in your business. Start marketing smarter today. Go to activecampaign.com/hack and get started with your free trial. All right, Bryce, that was a lot of fun. Getting to talk to another Canadian is always something I enjoy doing, and getting to share the conversation with you out there. The other thing I get to share with you is we've reached that point in the show, the point where I get to go back and share the experience of listening as a third person, as you do. So I went back and I listened to the conversation between Bryce and myself, and then I went back and I listened to the conversation again. That second time through, there was something that Bryce had said that I'd missed, maybe due to his humble Canadian nature, I'm not sure. But when I went back again, it was there, and it was so very, very clear to me this time. Did you get it? Did you hear it? Let's do it. Let's find the hack.
The reason I freelanced, the reason I consult, the reason I'm an entrepreneur is because I do genuinely believe that we're at a place with society, with technology, where we are much more empowered to make these things happen for ourselves, to be our own boss, to decide what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. It's not always easy, and there have been rough years in my experience, years where I've definitely looked back on it and I was like, is this the right decision I'm making? But I really do believe that if you're going to be doing something for, like, let's just be frank, outside of sleeping, there is nothing I do more than working. And I want to like working as much as I like sleeping. And I really like sleeping.
And that's the hack. Bryce. I absolutely love this. So besides the wanting to make work something that you like as much as sleeping, and you really, really, really like sleeping, that's awesome. But the reason he freelanced, the reason he consults, the reason why he is an entrepreneur, because, and he's absolutely right, we're technology and the way things are right at this very moment, we are absolutely empowered to do our own thing, to be our own bosses, to build what we want to build and do the work we want to do and do the work that we like doing as much as we like sleeping, or like doing whatever it is you like doing the most. I'm assuming most of us like to sleep, at least to some degree. And this is absolutely true. And I love how he disclaims it in the middle, how he's not saying it's easy. He's not saying it hasn't been like super hard at times. But you know what? Life is hard. Things are hard in general. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't do your own thing. You shouldn't decide and take this empowering time that we're in and push forth and become a freelancer, become an entrepreneur, become a consultant, whatever it is you want to do. Don't worry about doing it on other people's times. Don't worry about doing it on other people's ideas and what other people think is what you should be doing. He's absolutely right. This time and this place we are at has never happened in history. I don't know where it's going, but you can look back where it's come from people 20, 30, 40 years ago. Really 10 years ago, you couldn't do it as easily as you can do it now. That's an amazing thing. It's an amazing opportunity to pass up on through fear that it could be hard, because I don't care what path you think is going to be easier. It's going to be hard no matter what, because that's just how it is. But that doesn't mean that it's bad or not good or not something that's going to teach you or help you grow. Find work you love to do as much as you love sleeping. Bryce, thank you so very much. All right, well, that was fun. HackTheEntrepreneur.com. Remember, I am looking for questions for the Hack the Entrepreneur mailbag. We're going to try a couple episodes. It's going to be fun. You can email me, John, at HackTheEntrepreneur.com. Hit me up on Twitter. Hit me up on Facebook. Wherever it is you want to drop me a question, feel free to drop your name and website if you want. And I'll also mention those with your question, as well as give you a link off the show notes for it. I just want to see where this goes, see what kind of questions we can answer, and see if we can spice things up a little here. All right. It's been fun. Thank you so much for joining me. I really, truly do appreciate it. And please, until next time, keep hacking the entrepreneur.